April is the perfect time of year to get out in the garden and lift and divide your herbaceous perennials. The garden here at North Lodge is absolutely jam-packed with different plants, all of which are starting to get really quite large. And if I'm honest, some of them are starting to get a little bit out of hand and starting to choke out and outgrow their neighbours. So during the month of April, I like to get out in the garden and lift and divide a few things. Things like this hosta start to get really quite large, and I lift and divide my hostas around every 2 or 3 years. One, to keep the plant fresh and vigorous, and secondly, to generate more plants which I can give to family or friends. A lot of gardeners will suggest you do this in the month of October and November, but with over 3 decades of experience, I've found that you can often do more damage than good. If you lift and divide your plants at the wrong time of year, you can sometimes not actually generate more plants, but you can actually lose plants instead. They sit in cold and wet soil all the way through the winter months and sometimes just rot and never wake up again. So you're much better leaving this task to where the weather starts to warm up and it starts to actively grow. You can see this hosta is literally just about to break leaf now. This hosta actually lives in this chimney pot. This one here, I've got a pair of them outside the cottage and they always get a huge amount of attention. I get asked so many times, how do I keep my hostas slug free, and the fact that they never actually get touched by any slugs or snails. They're always absolutely beautiful, and the answer to that is I encourage the wrens and the other birds into the garden who absolutely love picking off the tiny slugs and snails. I've taken this hosta now out of its chimney pot. You can see it's absolutely chock-a-block. And what I'm going to do now is quite brutal. And as a gardener, you never really get used to doing this and handling plants quite like this. So you're going to need one of two things. You can either use a border spade, something nice and sharp and long. This is the border spade from Bergen & Ball, which I like to dig things up with in the garden. Very nice, long, deep shaft and quite pointed for getting into the tight spaces. Or you can use something like this. This is a flat-backed wood saw. Don't use a brand new one of these because it will never cut wood again. This is an old one from work that we've got knocking about. And now I've taken this hosta out of its chimney pot, I'm just going to set about reducing the roots, and this is really quite brutal. One of the things I want to do is I want to get fresh growing media into the pot, and I want to obviously divide it up and make it smaller. Otherwise, watering is an absolute nightmare. I'm having to water it twice a day during the heat of the summer. The chimney pot actually sits in a terracotta saucer because it's bottomless. So it sits in this terracotta saucer and I fill that up with water every couple of days, and it's absolutely beautiful. But if I don't lift and divide them regularly, they get so large that I can't get the water into them. So the first thing I'm going to do is, taking my flat back saw, I'm actually going to reduce the roots by around a third. It doesn't feel very nice, I must admit. It's not a really nice thing to do. That section there is going to get completely discarded. I'm then left with obviously a reduced crown, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the saw into this and I'm going to divide this into 3 clumps. On a side note, if anybody is local and wants a couple of lumps of hosta, I've got some lumps of hosta to get rid of. I don't want any more of this particular variety. Much as it is absolutely beautiful, I can't remember what it is. I actually got it from a client. It is very pretty, but I've lifted and divided this so many times that there's several clumps of it about the garden. So it's beautiful, but I don't want any more. So if anybody does want it, please do let me know. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my saw, trying to avoid the top growth, and I'm simply going to cut it into chunks. Going to cut this into 3 lumps. That's why you don't use a new one. That's the saw picking up a little bit of gravel, a little bit of stone. There we go. Look at that. Sliced straight through it. I say, as a gardener, this doesn't feel particularly nice, but what I'm going to do is, that's one chunk there, and I'm going to half this chunk again. So I've divided this into 3, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these pieces that I'm just about to cut now as the new part. Again, take my saw to it and cut it all the way through. There we go. And there we go, just like a cooking reveal. Look at the roots on that. I'm then going to discard that third. I don't want that. I'm going to keep probably that part there. I don't know why, but I feel drawn to that one. And that one's going to go. And I'm going to take this particular section, I'm going to pot this back into the chimney pot with plenty of fresh growing media. It's not just hostas that you can do like this. You can lift and divide anything from phlox to goldenrod. I've also got a couple of big spiky bear's paws to do, lots of other bits and pieces in the garden, things like phlox that I'm going to lift and divide, some astilbes which are exactly the same. So just as stuff starts to wake up and really grow away nicely, now is the time to lift and divide. And you can either give these away to a friend, donate these to a plant swap, or you can trade them for something else that you might want. But as I say, if anybody local wants a couple of chunks of hostas, I've got plenty to give away, so I'll leave them to one side for now. Please feel free to drop me a message if you want to. But that's something you can crack on with in the garden over the next couple of weeks, just as starts to really wake up and grow away. And as I say, if you do this when it's actively growing, much more likely to survive and get away properly. This is now going to have plenty of growing media, or fresh growing media, in the chimney pot it lives on. I'm just going to fill this up with some fresh soil and get it potted back up, put the saucer back under it and pop it back next to the house. Anyway, I'll see you all again soon. Take care now. Bye bye.